In the beginning, before light dared to be born, there was only her, Nyx, the eternal night. So said the ancients, light only shines because it knows the touch of darkness. But who truly knows the night? Who dares to unveil its secrets? Nyx was not absence but presence, a living force weaving the universe with invisible threads. A power that could not be conquered, only feared. Even Zeus, the Lord of Thunder, trembled at the very name of his grandmother. For she, Nyx, held a truth that even the gods could not deny. Now the echoes of that night return, reminding us that all light owes its existence to darkness. What secrets does she conceal? What truths forgotten through the ages now wish to be revealed? Prepare to face the mystery, to walk through the shadows of the valley of redemption. The story of Nyx begins now. Number 1. In the beginning of time. At the dawn of time, when the universe had not yet known the pulse of light, all that existed was the infinite embrace of the eternal night. There was a deep void, an untouched vastness, and within it dwelt Nyx, the sovereign of the Black Veil, whose presence was as ancient as destiny itself. The night was not mere absence, but a living, pulsating entity, weaving with invisible fingers the threads that would one day shape the cosmos. Nyx was the very sigh of mystery, the primordial womb from which creation would emerge. The night is the mother and lover of secrets, so went the ancient verse, and Nyx, in the depths where even time dared not venture, waited, solemn and unperturbed. She had no eyes that could be seen, yet she observed all, cloaked in a mantle so dark that the stars were but distant strands. Her wings, broad and soft as silk, enveloped the void, and each beat of them brought echoes that traveled through the endless emptiness, whispering secrets that mortal ears could never comprehend. From the shadows cast beneath her wings, the first signs of life emerged, and it was from the womb of that primordial darkness that order emerged. The voice that echoed through the void was ancient, a voice that decreed the separation of light and darkness. Thus, God said, "Let there be light," and there was light. But what the scriptures do not reveal explicitly is that before light was called into the world, darkness had a queen. Nyx, the eternal night, was the presence that reigned supreme, weaving dreams of chaos even before the Creator shaped reality. From the depths of that profound darkness were born Gaia, the earth, and Uranus, the sky, not as children of celestial love, but as sparks that sprung from untamed chaos, molded by Nyx's invisible hands. Gaia was solid and eternal, a firm ground vibrating with the promise of creation, while Uranus expanded above, a vast blue mantle speckled with a cold and distant glow. Both were manifestations of the night's dream, fragments of the deep enigma that Nyx bore in her womb. And with them, Nyx breathed life into what was once inert. Ah, so said the ancients, light only shines because it knows the touch of darkness. Nyx whispered ancestral secrets to the winds. She handed the scepter of creation to her son, the newborn Uranus, along with an implicit promise of order. But what few knew was that this promise was not eternal. For Nyx knew the truth of the cosmos, that all order rises upon the foundations of chaos and sooner or later returns to its embrace. She knew that even the kings of the heavens had their fate intertwined with darkness, a shadow they could never undo. The biblical texts speak of the separation of the waters and the creation of the heavens. But where was Nyx at that moment? In the shadows, she continued to weave, intertwining her invisible threads. And God called the light day, and the darkness He called night. But that darkness was not merely a void. It was the manifestation of Nyx herself, who watched in silence, knowing that light would always be indebted to her. The night was not devoid of power. On the contrary, it was the silent mother of all that existed. Nyx's eyes, though hidden, were always attentive to gods and men. Zeus, the Lord of Thunder, heir to a lineage made of light and power, hesitated before pronouncing his grandmother's name. He knew that the night was not something that could be conquered, only respected and perhaps feared. Nyx was beyond any mortal glory or desire, and even the courageous Zeus harbored within himself a subtle and hidden fear, the fear that the night might one day return to reclaim what once was hers. With her children, sleep, death, and strife, Nyx wove the tapestry of mortal and immortal destinies, silently, away from the curious eyes of men and gods. She, the hidden queen, allowed light to emerge but never to reign without the reflection of darkness. By handing the scepter to Uranus, Nyx knew that conflict was inevitable, that the harmony of light, in all its beautiful illusion, would not survive the inevitable touch of the eternal night. For, like the night itself, she knew that balance was the only truth of the universe. Light only existed because darkness conceded it, and could, at any moment, reclaim what belonged to it. Thus, the true story is not of a glorious and linear creation, but of a world sustained by the eternal balance between light and shadow. Nyx, always silent, observes from her throne of shadows. On the horizon, the wind carries the sound of melancholic laughter as the night spreads like a cloak over the world, reminding all that before the first spark, there was the first breath of night, and that when the cycle ends, all will return to the beginning, to her deep and inescapable embrace. Number 2. The awakening of the Primordials. Gaia and Uranus had emerged from the depths of the night, but creation was still far from complete. Gaia, steadfast and generous, began to shape the contours of the world. Deep valleys, mountains rising like pillars that touched the heavens, and winding rivers tracing veins across the surface of the earth. Every curve and contour was a reflection of the silent dream that Nyx nurtured within her being. Gaia did not merely exist, she flourished, and from her vastness sprang the first manifestations of life, small seeds of a distant future. Uranus, meanwhile, stretched above, enveloped in the majesty of his starry mantle. He watched Gaia with admiration, and together, they formed the first alliance of the cosmos, earth and sky, in an eternal dance. Uranus covered Gaia with an infinite embrace, protecting her and offering her the space needed for life to grow. Yet even in his grandeur, Uranus felt the weight of the night's expectation, the constant presence of Nyx, whose essence filled every void between the stars. Thus, from Gaia's womb, the first children of the Primordials were born. The Titans, immortal giants who carried within them the raw and untamed power of creation. Each Titan was a reflection of the primordial force that had given rise to the universe, and as they emerged from the fertile soil, Gaia looked upon them with pride and fear. Among the Titans were Cronus, the most cunning and ruthless, and Rhea, whose presence was as imposing as the mountains themselves. Uranus, however, viewed his children with distrustful eyes. The greatness of the Titans threatened his sovereignty, and fear settled in his heart. Nyx, the eternal night, watched silently, knowing that the balance she so cherished was about to be broken. Uranus, fearful of losing his power, decided to prevent his children from fully emerging, forcing them back into Gaia's womb, imprisoning them in the depths of the earth. Number 3. The Revolt of the Titans. Gaia, overwhelmed by intense pain, felt revolt growing in her heart. She loved her children, and Uranus's oppression could not be tolerated. The suffering of her children, imprisoned within her own womb, was unbearable, and the pain turned into rage. Gaia decided she would not remain passive in the face of Uranus's tyranny. It was in the shadows of the night that she devised her plan. Gaia forged a great sickle, a sharp blade made of the purest metal her insides could produce. The blade glowed with a dim light, reflecting the cold shine of the darkness where Nyx dwelled. Gaia whispered ancient words, secrets hidden since the beginning of time, to one of her sons. Cronus, the most cunning and bold of the Titans. She offered him the sickle and a purpose, to free his siblings and overthrow Uranus' reign. Cronus, driven by courage and ambition, accepted the weapon and the mission. Nyx, watching from her throne of shadows, knew that this would be the beginning of a new cycle, and that all light, no matter how intense, would always leave room for the darkness to creep in. Thus, when night covered the cosmos and Uranus descended to lie upon Gaia, Cronus struck. With a fierce blow, he severed the sky from the earth, cutting the bonds that imprisoned his siblings and ending Uranus' reign. The blood of Uranus fell upon the earth, and from it sprang new entities, the Erinyes, vengeful spirits, and the giants, beings of immense strength. The earth, now free from Uranus's yoke, vibrated with a new energy, a promise of renewal and chaos. Cronus took power for himself and proclaimed himself the new king of the Titans, promising a world where his siblings would be free. But Nyx knew the truth that escaped the eyes of the immortals. Every act of creation carries within it the seed of destruction. Cronus now held power, but he also bore the burden of prophecy. The night whispered in the winds that one day Cronus, like his father before him, would be overthrown by one of his own children. And so, while Cronus ruled, he also lived under the shadow of fear. The same fear that had led Uranus to tyranny. Rhea, Cronus's companion, brought into the world a new generation of gods. Zeus, Poseidon, Hades, Hera, Demeter, and Hestia, each of them shining with the promise of a different future. But Cronus's fear led him to commit the same mistake as his father. He devoured his children as soon as they were born, trying to prevent the prophecy from coming true. Nyx, from her hidden place, merely watched, for she knew that balance could never be denied forever. It was then that Rhea, desperate to save her youngest son Zeus, hid him in a cave, giving Cronus a stone wrapped in cloth, which he swallowed without question. Zeus grew up in secret, nourished by the milk of the goat Amalthea, while the power of the night watched over him. Nyx knew he was the key to the next cycle, the light that challenges the darkness, only to realize that it would always depend on it. When Zeus came of age, he challenged his father. With the help of Metis, goddess of cunning, he gave Cronus a potion that made him vomit his siblings. The gods emerged, ready to claim their rightful place, and thus began the great war between the Titans and the Olympians, a war that shook the foundations of the cosmos and even made Nyx's throne tremble. But the eternal night knew that this was not the end, merely a new beginning. Just as Cronus had overthrown Uranus, and Zeus now challenged Cronus, the cycle would continue indefinitely. Nyx, wrapped in her shadows, smiled, for she knew that regardless of who held power, the night would always be there, at the beginning and the end of all things. She was the origin and the destiny, the mystery that could never be fully unveiled. When Zeus and his siblings finally defeated the Titans and imprisoned them in Tartarus, a new era began, the era of the Olympian gods. But in the depths of the universe, Nyx remained, a silent reminder that every beginning carries within it an end, and that all light owes its existence to darkness. And so the universe continued to spin, sustained by the fragile balance between order and chaos, between the light that shines and the shadow that sustains it. And Nyx, from her eternal throne, watched, for she knew that one day even the most powerful gods would return to her dark and silent embrace, and the cycle would begin anew. Thus ends the story of Nyx. But the echo of her presence remains, a whisper that transcends ages, a reminder that before the first light, there was always the night.